The desert sky was black velvet, stitched with 1,000 stars. At 3:52 hours, the silence was broken only by the hum of rotor blades cutting through the night. Major Sofia Shadow Ramirez sat at the controls of her AH-64 Apache, eyes glowing faint green from the night vision display. She was steady, calm. Her heartbeat matched the rhythm of the machine she'd flown across 3 wars. Behind her, Lieutenant Robert Hawk Miller tapped at the diagnostics panel. His voice crackled over the intercom, the edges softened by his Midwestern accent. "All green back here, Shadow. Hellfire's locked, guns primed. Though, with any luck, we won't need fireworks tonight." Sophia smirked beneath her oxygen mask. She'd flown with Robert for 16 months. Barely 24, he was young, unscarred by the years of war that had carved lines into her face. Yet he had hands that never shook and eyes that never blinked when danger closed in. She trusted him. But trust doesn't stop betrayal. At 3:59, the first tremor struck. Sophia's navigation screen flickered, then died completely, leaving her staring at static where coordinates should have been. She frowned. "Hawk, confirm. You picking us up?" Robert's calm tone vanished. "Negative? Wait, hold on. Systems are cascading. I'm losing everything. What the hell is going on?" Sophia tried to switch to backups, but each screen blinked out like candles snuffed in a storm. Her comm spat only dead silence. Then the sky lit up. A white trail, sharp against the darkness, streaked toward them. A surface-to-air missile, close enough that Sophia saw the flame licking at its tail. She yanked the Apache sideways, the cockpit rattling violently as the missile screamed past. "Hawk. Multiple launches. Bearing 280. They're locking us, Shadow." Her mind snapped into combat mode. This wasn't random insurgent fire. The timing was too perfect. The jamming was too clean. "They knew we were coming," she muttered, teeth clenched as she forced the helicopter into brutal evasive maneuvers. And then the lights appeared. On the horizon, headlights snapped alive in 3 directions, converging like wolves circling prey. Trucks, armored carriers, moving with military precision. "We're boxed in," Robert said, his voice low now, almost reverent. "Killbox," Sophia confirmed. "This whole thing is a setup." A warning alarm wailed. Fuel pressure dropping. Red lights flared across the console. Robert swore under his breath. "We've taken shrapnel. Systems failing. 8 minutes, maybe less, before we're forced down." Sophia guided the bird down with teeth-grinding control. The Apache slammed into the earth, skidding into what had once been a village. Now nothing but shattered stone and broken memories. Dust and ash rose in a choking cloud. Engines cut. Silence. For a breath, the world stood still. Then, the drip of blood. Sophia twisted around. Robert slumped against his harness, a trickle of crimson crawling down from beneath his helmet. His chest rose and fell, alive, but barely. Sophia's stomach clenched, but there was no time to linger. Enemy vehicles crested the surrounding ridges. Dust swirled as at least 9 trucks and 3 armored personnel carriers closed in. Far too many for a capture mission. They wanted her. Alive. She dragged Robert from his seat, his weight heavy on her shoulder, until they reached the cover of a collapsed wall. Boots crunched through debris. Shadows moved with precision, not the reckless charge of insurgents, but the steady march of professionals. And then, the buzzing. A surveillance drone hovered overhead, its red eye scanning, its hum vibrating through her bones. They had her locked. A voice crackled through speakers hidden among the vehicles. "Smooth. Cold. Foreign. Check the aircraft for intel, but do not damage it. Our employer wants the pilot intact." Sophia's blood froze. Whoever these men were, they weren't rebels. They were hunters. Contracted. Paid. Professionals who didn't care about rules of war. She pressed her daughter's photograph closer against her chest, the one she always carried in her vest pocket. Emma, 6 years old, with a smile wide enough to outshine the darkest skies. Then, the air itself betrayed her. From the enemy's loudspeakers, Emma's voice filled the night. "Mommy, when are you coming home? I made you a drawing of your helicopter." Sophia's breath hitched. No. No. They had hacked her private communications. Stolen her daughter's innocent voice. Weaponized it. The voice returned, colder now. Major Sophia Ramirez. We know about your daughter, Emma. We know about your ex-husband, Michael. We know about your mother in Denver. We know you have 19 confirmed kills and that you helped capture Colonel Viktor Petrov 3 years ago. Sophia's hands trembled. Petrov. The butcher of Al-Khalid. The war criminal she had personally helped drag into chains after he massacred an entire refugee camp. He was supposed to rot in maximum security. Colonel Petrov sends his regards, the voice purred. Her stomach twisted. This entire operation, the man continued, is being broadcast live. A global audience. Current bid, $75,000. The winner decides your fate after capture. A sickening wave of realization struck her. They weren't just hunting her. They were selling her humiliation as entertainment. Nearby, Robert stirred, eyes fluttering open. Bloodied, dazed, but awake. Shadow, his voice cracked. Leave me. You can move faster alone. Sophia gripped his collar, pulling him close until his dazed eyes locked onto hers. Not happening, Hawk. You and me. Together. Always. Above, the drone circled like a vulture. Boots echoed on broken stone as mercenaries advanced. Then Sophia spotted it, half hidden under rubble. A collapsed entrance leading underground. Without hesitation, she dragged Robert toward it, slipping into the shadows of a broken stairwell just as flashlights swept across their last position. The stairwell breathed dust. Each step creaked like the groan of ghosts. At the bottom lay a half-buried room, lined with shattered wooden crates. Robert's eyes widened despite the pain. Shadow, this place, it's an armory. Sophia's heart pounded as she ripped open a crate. Ammunition, RPGs, plastic explosives, still intact. Enough firepower to turn the earth itself inside out. Above, the cold voice thundered again through speakers, taunting. We know you are down there. Current bid is now $125,000. Sophia's grip tightened on her pistol. Her rage burned icy and pure. They thought she was prey. They had no idea the hunt was about to change. Silence. A breath. A pause in the dark. Somewhere above, boots moved closer. The game had just begun. Sophia and Robert are trapped underground, hunted, with her daughter's voice echoing in her ears and an audience bidding on her life. Dust breathed out of the underground like an old lung. The stairwell ended in a low, concrete room, the ceiling cracked and bowing as if the weight of the war above might finally crush it. Sophia steadied Robert against a shattered pillar. His pupils were reactive. Good. The cut on his temple kept bleeding. Less good. She tore a strip from her sleeve and tied it tight. You with me, Hawk? His smile was crooked. You drag like a forklift, Shadow. Flatter me later. She swept her light across the room. Wooden crates slumped open, their stenciled markings fading into splinters. Rusted magazines, caked belts of ammo, and tucked in a corner, wrapped in oilcloth and prayer, plastic explosives, bricks of dull clay with electronic detonators. Someone's apocalypse fund had survived the years. Robert whistled. This basement's a love letter to chaos. Careful where you step, Sophia said. Old explosives age like milk. Above them, boots. Low voices. Calm. The patient rhythm of professionals. Through some unseen speaker, the cold announcer returned, silk over steel. Major Sophia Ramirez, the audience says hello. Current bid, $132,000. Can we make it $150? A new sound threaded the air. A chorus of digital pings, a rising tide of distant applause. Comments. Live reactions. Their hunt had a chat window. A higher voice cut in, young, accented, amused. She was better in Afghanistan. Watch her twitch. Another. Bet she cracks by dawn. Sophia closed her eyes for one breath, only one, then opened them razor clear. Okay, she whispered to Robert, we're going to make them arrogant. Then we're going to make them wrong. Robert blinked through the blood. My favorite combo. She knelt by the explosives and ran her fingers across the stamped numbers. familiar like a language nobody should have to speak. The detonators were modern enough. Batteries intact. Whoever had stocked this cache knew what mattered. Hawk, demo certification? He wiped his hands on his flight suit, then flexed his fingers to stop the shaking. Chicago boy. Fireworks were a lifestyle. Good. All set. You wire. Copy. For a moment, their world narrowed to precise motions. Sophia rolled off strips of explosive, warming them with her palms. Robert unpacked detonators, checked circuits, ran leads with the soft focus of prayer. The concrete floor was gritty beneath their knees. The air smelled like damp and old iron, spiced with the copper blood. A dull thump above. A door kicked. Boots moving closer. Flashlights swept through cracks in the ceiling like searchlight fingers. Robert's voice went thin. We're still hot on thermal. Sophia looked up. An idea flickered. She dragged a metal locker and tipped it to expose the frame beneath, a hollow space rimmed in steel. She peeled off her flight vest and stuffed it deep inside, then slid a thermal blanket over it, smoothing it until the shape looked human. Decoy, Robert asked. Decoy, she said. If they drop charges down the stairs, the heat bloom will mislead them, by just enough. He grinned despite the pain. You from the future or something? From the part of the past that didn't want to die. The speaker above them popped again. This time the announcer's tone had acquired a smile. Major, time to say hello to our sponsors. A beam of harsh white startled the dark, the drone's eye peering down through a vent grate. Its red indicator pulsed like a heartbeat. Then the sound changed, the high insect whine of a mobile jammer passing directly overhead. The hair on Sophia's arms lifted. She could almost feel the comms spectrum being crushed into silence. She touched her radio anyway, keeping her voice steady, defeated enough to bait. Any friendly on this net? Do you copy? We are, repeat, are in a basement cache 3 clicks northeast of the crash site. 2 souls. Wounded. Engaging hostiles. Static swallowed her words. And then, predictably, the speaker cut in with a laugh that wasn't really laughter. Oh, Major, there is no one listening. We are jamming a 60-kilometer radius. No help tonight. Sophia smiled, small and sharp. Thank you. She turned to Robert. Jammers close to their command element. Always is. Sensitive, expensive, need shepherding. Which means, he said, eyes brightening, if we remove the shepherd. The flock runs blind, she finished. We don't outrun this. We rewire it. He nodded and kept working the leads. How much time do we have? A beat. Above, a voice in the chorus. They're in the basement. Gas them. Another, clipped and professional. Negative. Employer wants the pilot intact. Sophia met Robert's eyes. We don't have time, so we'll make some. She moved to the crumbling staircase and pressed herself against the wall. Through a fist-sized hole, she could see boots gather in a half-circle, shadows long and certain. Their discipline was the quiet kind. No chatter, no swagger. The kind of men who had done ugly things enough times that it was just a task now. Sophia lifted her pistol toward the hole and paused. Silent moment. A breath. The room seemed to hold itself still, listening to her heartbeat. In, out. In. She fired 3 times through the hole, deliberately wide. The rounds smashed stone and sparked. Yells above. Bodies dropped to a knee. One man fired back on reflex, rounds chewing the doorway. They moved to flank. Good. Be brave, she thought. Be confident. Walk into the map I'm drawing for you. While their focus shifted, Sophia sprinted back into the room and started planting charges. One at the support column beneath the stair, one along the seam where the upper floor met the wall, one tucked beneath a rusted server rack with coils of cable. Perfect shrapnel. Robert followed, feeding her detonators, his hands surprisingly steady now that the plan had teeth. 2-minute fuse on this line, he said. Remote on the others. How big? If I lace the voids right? He hesitated, then grinned. Biblical. Her mouth twitched. Save me a verse. The audience above continued their theater. Current bid, $148,000, the announcer purred. Can we hit 200? Bonus package includes helmet cam footage and a personal message. Sophia looked up into the cracked concrete as if she could see the faces on the other side of the world. People watching in kitchens, in crowded bars, in dim rooms full of expensive men. She felt the weight of their eyes, hungry for spectacle. She thought of Emma's warm breath when she fell asleep, her hair smelling like shampoo and crayons. Sophia's jaw set. Hawk. Yeah. If they ever drag me onto a stream, pull the plug. He didn't pretend not to understand. You'll never be content, so I'll never get the chance. She exhaled a laugh that wasn't really laughter. Deal. In the corner, something caught her eye, a trunk half buried in dust. She kicked it open to find spools of wire, a busted hand crank radio, and, bless, the orange cap of an emergency locator beacon. She thumbed it. Dead. She shrugged, set it aside. After we blind them, she said, we go loud with the beacon. If we get sky friends, we ride. If not, we make our own flight. Exactly. The drone's red eye slid away from the vent, and the floorboards above groaned as weight shifted. A gloved hand appeared at the top of the stairs, then another. A team stacked, moving down in practiced harmony. Robert whispered, they're coming. Sophia pointed him to cover behind a toppled shelf. On my mark, you hit the floodlight. We have a floodlight. She jabbed her thumb at a steel case she'd flipped open, an old portable work lamp with a cracked lens. He blinked. You found a sun in a basement. You'd be amazed what people leave underground. They moved like chess pieces, setting a trap. Sophia crouched behind a concrete rib, pistol tight. Robert hunched over the lamp switch, his thumb hovering. The first mercenary descended into view, rifle up, muzzle sweeping. Behind him, two more, and a fourth holding a door charge. Their helmets glowed faint in the beam of their own lights. The lead man paused, stuttered. He'd caught the heat of the decoy in the metal locker. He signaled. The man with the charge stepped forward, affixed it to the wrong doorframe, and yanked the cord. Now, Sophia hissed. Robert slammed the floodlight on. The basement exploded into white. The men flinched, night vision scorched. The door charge detonated at the decoy, reducing the empty corner to confetti. In the shock and smoke, Sophia fired. 2 shots. The lead man went down. The team scattered to angles, disciplined, efficient, but rhythm broken. Hawk, line 3, she shouted. He triggered the first remote detonator. A thump under the stairs blew a wedge out of the concrete and sent the remaining men tumbling like dice. Wood screamed. Dust turned to fog. Sophia didn't wait. She grabbed the loop of wire Robert had left and pulled it across the room, doglegging it around rubble to a second planted charge. This one under the server rack. She jammed the detonator and glanced at Robert. He nodded, reading her thought before she spoke. Chain it, he said. Chain it. A voice from above, angry now, frantic. Pushin'. She's in the south corner. Move, move. Another voice, steady, the commander. Hold. Wait for the drone to reacquire. Don't ruin the merchandise. Sophia keyed her radio again, knowing they were listening, flipping her voice from iron to tired. Any friendly unit, this is Shadow. We're pinned in a basement beneath a 3-story structure with compromised supports. Hostiles converging. If you hear me, tell Emma I'm coming home. Silence. Then the announcer, almost tender. Oh, Major, that's sweet. But in the edges of that sweet, there was a tremor. Ego had leaned forward. Focus had drifted. Somewhere above, the jammer team was listening too closely, smirking too hard. Good. Come closer. Sophia pointed to the wall that backed toward the street. Their command element will be parked there. Satellite dish. Power truck. Jammer mast. If we bring this wall down. Robert's eyes sharpened. We'll bury the shepherd and unclog the sky. He slid the final detonator into her palm. She pressed explosive like a blessing along the crack where the wall met earth, nestling it into the wound. Robert wired it into the daisy chain and taped the leads to a rebar spike. His breathing had evened out, steady as a metronome. Above, the drone's hum moved again, right over their heads. The red eye burned through the vent. Searching, searching. Sophia lifted her gaze to that eye, to the invisible crowd attached to it. For a heartbeat, she let them see her. Not a prize, not a spectacle, not something to buy. Just a mother with dirt on her face and a pulse like thunder. Then she spoke, calm and lethal, into the radio she knew they could hear. "This is Major Sophia Shadow Ramirez," she said. "To everyone watching this sick carnival, you picked the wrong hunt." A beat. Quiet. Like the air held its breath. Robert swallowed. "Shadow." She looked at him and the corner of her mouth curled up. "Hawk." "Yeah." "Light it." His thumb hovered over the master switch. The room ticked. Somewhere upstairs, a boot scraped. Somewhere in the street, a generator coughed. Robert looked at her one last time, eyes blood-bright and certain. "You ready?" Sophia's answer was a whisper sharpened to a blade. "Always." His thumb pressed. The world ended in fire. The first blast chewed through the basement wall like the breath of a god. Heat ripped the air, turning stone to shrapnel, wood to dust. The shock wave punched outward, shattering windows, flipping trucks, and silencing the speakers in one instant of apocalyptic roar. Above ground, mercenaries screamed as the street itself folded in on their command post. The jammer mast toppled, its steel frame twisting like paper before crashing down in a spray of sparks. Generators split open, coughing black smoke and raw fire. And just as quickly, silence followed. Beneath the rubble, pressed against a cracked pillar, Sophia opened her eyes. Dust rained down in lazy flakes. Robert coughed beside her, blood staining his teeth, but alive. "You still breathing?" she rasped. He laughed weakly. Define breathing. Sophia helped him to his feet. Her ears rang with a high metallic whine, but another sound cut through. The drone's hum was gone. The air above felt lighter, no longer suffocated by the jammer's grip. She checked her watch. They'd been down less than 10 minutes, but it felt like days. They climbed through the wreckage, each step crunching glass and bone-dry concrete. At ground level, the night had changed. What was once a neat perimeter of trucks and precision was now chaos. Burning vehicles, smoking craters, bodies sprawled where discipline had died. 3 mercenaries staggered from behind an overturned personnel carrier. One clutched a radio, another raised his rifle. Sophia didn't hesitate. She drew and fired, 2, 3, for shots. The men fell, their rifles clattering uselessly against stone. Robert winced. "You're colder than ice right now." Sophia reloaded, eyes burning with something primal. They wanted a show? Let's give them one. The survivors had lost their order. Flashlights jittered in the dark, beams swinging wild. Shadows shouted at each other in fractured commands, the professional calm gone. Sophia stalked through the ruins like smoke. She darted between burning walls, her boots whispering against the dirt. Robert followed, slower, but his resolve stiffened with every step. Somewhere nearby, a mercenary moaned into a live mic command. "Do you copy?" "Command." No one answered. The stream had gone dead. Sophia crouched beside the body of another man. His chest rose shallow, eyes wide in terror. She pressed her pistol to his vest, not to kill, but to search. She pulled a knife, 2 magazines, and most importantly, a radio headset still intact. She slid it on. A burst of panic chatter filled her ear. "Command down. Jammer destroyed. We're blind out here." Sophia keyed the mic, pitching her voice low. "Alpha Team, this is Delta. Enemy retreating east. Push now, push." Through the smoke, she watched 2 silhouettes sprint into the open, rifles raised. She cut them down before they realized they'd been tricked. Robert stared, a strange grin cutting through the blood on his face. "You're hunting them." Sophia's eyes glowed in the firelight. "Damn right I am." A sound rippled through the night, faint but growing. The distinct thunder of rotor blades. Sophia froze, head tilted. Robert heard it too. He straightened, disbelief flashing across his bruised face. "Shadow, tell me that's not in my head." "It's not." For the first time since the crash, hope sliced through the suffocating dark. She tugged the locator beacon from her vest and flicked it on. A faint green light blinked, signal broadcasting. Her radio crackled. Not enemy chatter this time. A new voice, strained but American. This is Reaper 3-1. Receiving your beacon. Friendly forces. Pop smoke if you can. Sophia exhaled a laugh, shaky and fierce. Copy, Reaper. We'll give you fire instead of smoke. She turned to Robert. Can you walk? He tightened his grip on his rifle. Can you stop me? The rotor thunder grew until it filled the sky. Over the ridge, 2 Apache helicopters crested, their chain guns glowing faintly in night vision. A Black Hawk followed, its side doors open, ready for extraction. The mercenaries reacted instantly, firing tracer rounds into the sky. But the Apaches answered with a roar, their cannons spitting fire, tearing through enemy lines with precision. Trucks exploded, armored carriers split open, and men scattered like rats from fire. Sophia and Robert pushed through the chaos, weaving toward the extraction zone. Bullets snapped past. Stone splintered at their heels. Sophia fired back, each shot a punctuation in the night. Through her headset, another voice broke in. Female, sharp, familiar. Shadow, this is Viper 1-2. Heard you were throwing a party. Sophia's lips curled into a grin despite the dust. Better late than never, Viper. It was Captain Lisa Park, one of her former students. Now leading an Apache herself, dancing through the sky with lethal grace. Sophia watched her former trainee peel low, unleashing a salvo of rockets that erased the last armored vehicle in a blossom of fire. Pride swelled in her chest. Even in hell, something could still bloom. The Black Hawk touched down in a storm of dust. Soldiers leapt out, waving them forward. Robert stumbled, nearly collapsing, but Sophia pulled him upright. Together they sprinted, the wind from rotor blades whipping their faces raw. They hauled themselves aboard as bullets pinged off the hull. The crew chief slammed the door, shouting into his mic. The Black Hawk lifted, rising above the smoking ruin that had once been a village, now a graveyard. For a moment, Sophia let herself breathe. Emma's face flashed in her mind, not as a weapon in her enemy's hands, but as a reason to live. She keyed her radio one last time, her voice hard as iron. Message for Colonel Victor Petrov. Tell him his money was wasted. Tell him American pilots don't break. And if he ever threatens my family again. Her eyes burned into the horizon. I'll come for him myself. Below, the battlefield shrank. Fires glowed in the night like dying stars. The Apaches circled, finishing what Sophia had started, their guns roaring like the voice of judgment itself. Robert leaned his head back against the cabin wall, eyes half closed. Shadow. Yeah. He grinned weakly. Remind me to never piss you off. Sophia chuckled, low and tired, but her eyes never left the flames below. She knew tonight wasn't the end. Petrov had played his hand, and men like him never stopped until someone forced their hand into the dirt forever. But for now, she was alive. They both were. And Emma would still have a mother to kiss her goodnight. Sophia has survived the inferno and turned the trap into a massacre. But she knows Petrov is still out there, watching, waiting, and planning the next move. The Pentagon had no windows in this part of the building, just gray walls, fluorescent lights, and the faint hum of air vents. A place where emotions were stripped away, where victories and deaths were reduced to bullet points in a slideshow. Major Sophia Shadow Ramirez sat at the far end of a long oak table, her flight uniform pressed, but still smelling faintly of smoke. Across from her sat men and women in suits, generals with polished insignias, analysts with cold eyes behind glasses. At the center, a 4-star general cleared his throat. His chest was a row of medals, his face carved from decades of stone. Major Ramirez, he began, voice clipped, you've been debriefed twice by Tactical Command and once by Counterintelligence. This session is different. Today we discuss impact. Impact. Sophia said nothing. She sat straight-backed, her hands folded on the table. Her knuckles were still scraped from rubble. An analyst pushed a remote. Screens flickered to life, showing still frames ripped from a live stream. Her face. Her Apache. The auction numbers climbing. Thousands of spectators across the globe watching her like prey. The analyst spoke flatly. The stream reached a peak audience of 62,000 unique viewers. Funding traced to offshore accounts tied to known war criminals. Encryption was sophisticated, but we've already detained 3 brokers who facilitated the auction. We believe the mastermind was indeed Colonel Viktor Petrov. The name froze the room. Petrov, the butcher, the man Sophia had helped lock away. He was in maximum security, another officer said sharply. The analyst shook his head. Was. 2 months ago, during a prisoner transfer in Eastern Europe, Petrov vanished. Intelligence suggests mercenary extraction. Governments denied involvement. Sophia's jaw tightened. They had told her Petrov was gone, locked behind steel. And yet his shadow had reached across continents, into her daughter's bedroom, into her cockpit, into her mind. The general leaned forward. Major, your actions prevented what could have been a devastating propaganda victory. Instead of watching an American pilot humiliated, the world watched mercenaries buried in rubble. You turned the narrative. That matters. He paused, letting the silence weigh heavy. Your tactics in that basement are being studied. Improvised defense. Use of enemy overconfidence. Command wants to incorporate your methods into survival training programs. Sophia exhaled through her nose. She didn't crave medals or curriculum. She craved safety for Emma. Then came the part she had dreaded. The general's tone softened, just slightly. But we can't ignore this. Petrov has resources. We believe he has more contracts out on your life. For your protection, we can relocate you. New identity, guarded detail, secure location. You'd be untouchable. Sophia looked him dead in the eye. With respect, sir. I didn't survive hell just to hide in someone else's shadow. The room shifted. Advisors exchanged glances. The general arched an eyebrow. Then what do you propose, Major? Her voice steadied, carrying the weight of someone who had walked through fire and chosen to keep walking. I want transfer to training command. Fort Campbell. I want to stand in front of every young pilot who thinks they're invincible and teach them what I learned in that basement. That the moment the enemy thinks they've trapped you, that's when you become the most dangerous. Silence. The kind of silence that mattered. One colonel cleared his throat. That would make you visible, Major. A target. Sophia allowed herself a faint smile. Then let Petrov watch me. Let him see me teach the next generation how to kill his men twice as fast. Fear is a weapon too. Let's hand it back to him. The general studied her for a long moment, then gave the faintest nod. Decision made. Later, walking the sterile halls, Sophia felt the adrenaline drain. Her hands trembled now that the battlefield had turned into paperwork. She slipped into a quiet alcove, away from the eyes of staffers and officers. Her phone buzzed. A photo. Emma, smiling, holding up a new drawing. A stick figure in a flight helmet, standing beside a helicopter. Above it in a child scrawl, "Mommy is the strongest." Her throat tightened. She pressed the phone to her chest. For a moment, she let the tears come, silent and hot. No one to see. Just her. She remembered the voice over the speakers, Emma's laughter twisted into a weapon. Rage rose again, but it wasn't the wildfire from the battlefield. It was colder now, focused. A blade waiting for its moment. Petrov had stolen her daughter's voice. Someday, Sophia swore, she'd take everything from him. That night, intelligence briefings confirmed her fears. Petrov was alive, moving, funding cells across 3 countries, recruiting mercenaries like others collected coins. She sat alone in her quarters, staring at the report. A photo of Petrov, gray-haired, eyes like winter. Robert had stopped by earlier, bandaged but alive. He tried to lighten the mood, joking about Chicago fireworks, but Sophia saw the way his hand shook when he thought she wasn't looking. Trauma leaves fingerprints no one else can see. Now in the silence, Sophia whispered to herself, "You wanted me broken, Petrov, but you gave me purpose instead." Her reflection in the window stared back at her, hard, unyielding. 3 weeks after the crash, Sophia stood before the brass again. This time, the orders were official. She would report to Fort Campbell to train the next generation. The general dismissed the room, but called after her as she turned to leave. "Major." She stopped. He studied her for a long moment. "You realize once you step into the open, Petrov will come." Sophia's answer was a whisper of steel. "Then let him." Sophia has turned down safety to step into visibility. She's preparing to train others, even as she knows Petrov's shadow looms closer. The hunt isn't over, it's only changed shape. The morning sky over Fort Campbell, Kentucky stretched wide and blue, Apache helicopters cutting across it like dark blades. The roar of engines echoed off the hangars, the smell of jet fuel mixing with cut grass and morning dew. On the tarmac, a new class of pilots gathered. Fresh faces, restless hands, eyes too eager. They stood in neat rows, their uniforms sharp, their youth louder than their discipline. At the front stood Major Sophia Shadow Ramirez. She was no longer hidden in the cockpit of a war machine, no longer the cornered prey of mercenaries. She was here visible, her scars unhidden, her presence unshakable. Behind her, projected on a screen, was a tactical diagram of a ruined Syrian village. Not the one from the manuals. Not the one polished for public reports. Her village. The trap she had turned into a graveyard. Sophia's voice carried, steady and sharp. "The enemy will always study you. They'll watch your patterns. They'll track your strengths. And then they'll use them against you." The class shifted uncomfortably. She let silence hang, long enough for the lesson to sink. "That's what they did to me. They blinded my bird. They cut my comms. They boxed me in." Her eyes scanned their faces, each one young enough to believe death only happened to other people. "And they thought I was finished. That's when I became dangerous." She walked to the board, tapped the red circle marking her crash site. "They turned my daughter's voice into a weapon. They thought it would break me. But you know what I remembered?" A young lieutenant raised her hand hesitantly. "Ma'am, what did you remember?" Sophia's voice softened. "That I wasn't fighting for myself. I was fighting for the people who needed me to come home. My daughter. My brothers and sisters beside me. My country. And when you fight for something greater than yourself, you become unstoppable." The lieutenant's eyes burned with quiet fire. Sophia nodded once, satisfied. She continued. "Sometimes, survival isn't about flying harder or shooting straighter. It's about making the enemy believe they've already won. That's when they let down their guard. That's when you strike." Later that evening, Sophia stood outside the hangar, watching the next generation run drills. Rotor wash kicked up dust. The sun dipped low, staining the horizon orange. Robert, still bandaged, still grinning like a man who had looked death in the face and spat, walked up beside her. "You sound scary when you lecture," he said. "Good," Sophia replied. "They need to be scared. Fear keeps you alive." Robert tilted his head. "And what about you? Still scared?" Sophia's eyes narrowed on the horizon. "Every day. That's how I know I'm ready." Weeks passed. The story of the ambush spread through the military like wildfire. Pilots whispered about it in mess halls. Instructors turned it into case studies. Soldiers repeated it in bars, each retelling sharper than the last. The tale grew into something more than truth. It became a legend. The story of the pilot who was trapped, outnumbered, hunted for sport, and who turned her cage into a killing ground. Sophia Ramirez had become more than a soldier. She was a warning. But legends don't stop enemies. On her desk, she still kept a classified folder. Inside, grainy photos of Colonel Victor Petrov. Alive. Moving. His eyes always cold, even in still frames. She knew he hadn't forgotten her, that he still wanted her silenced. But maybe that was the point. If Petrov wanted her watching over her shoulder, he'd get the opposite. She'd stand in the open, training the next wave, turning her survival into a weapon sharper than any bullet. Every new pilot who learned her lesson was another blade pointed at him. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Sophia addressed her class one last time. "You'll face enemies who are smarter than you, richer than you, more ruthless than you. They'll trap you, corner you, strip away every advantage you thought you had. And in that moment, you'll feel like prey. She let the silence settle, heavy and still. Don't believe it. Don't ever believe it. Because the moment they think you're broken, that's when you're at your most dangerous. That's when you stop being prey and become the predator. Behind her, Apaches roared into the twilight, their shadows stretching long across the Kentucky ground. Sophia looked out at her students, her legacy, and for the first time since the desert, she allowed herself to feel peace. Somewhere across the ocean, Petrov sat in the shadows, watching grainy footage of Sophia training young pilots. His jaw clenched, his scarred hands tightened around a glass of vodka. He thought the hunt had ended that night in Syria. But the truth was, it had only begun. What do you think makes someone truly unstoppable? Their training, their skill, or the people they fight for? Share your thoughts in the comments below.